the volume down a little more. Actually, I might turn you up in Discord. Do you mind saying something again?
Yep, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
That's better.
You sound
Yeah,
okay? Cool.
I blame that on you watching me.
Yeah, that's okay. You can blame me. Cool. So you can just crash it or spin it and just basically go back to the pits. However you want to get back to the pits. That was a good first run. That was really good. So one thing to remember is this session, I think, is hotter than the sessions from your data that I looked at earlier. So it's going to be there's going to be less grip in this session here. That wasn't deliberate. That's just how I set it. I think I set it from the official sessions. There's a way you can basically like emulate the conditions that they're going to be in at the real iRacing session. So I just did that. So that will make significant grip difference. The fact it's hotter will make it a bit more greasy and slippery.
Right.
But yeah, so that was a good first run. So getting in the 39.
I'm so surprised.
A couple of laps there within a tenth of a second at the end as well. Within a couple of hundredths of a second actually. But so I did have a little look whilst I was watching my screen. So I was watching the onboard from my gaming PC. I was also watching your Discord feed, and I could see straight away what the graphics option differences were. I can see how that's affecting it. So I'm comfortable that we can change that, and it's not going to affect you negatively. So that's the first thing I'll talk about before we talk about the driving.
Okay.
What I was watching when I was riding on board on your screen, so your broadcast, was if you're riding a mountain bike or a horse, I guess, and you try and keep your knees bent and you let the bike come up and down to you as you go over bumps, but you try and keep yourself like kind of in a static position whilst the bike moves underneath you, so you're not being chucked up and down with the bike going over bumps and stuff. That isn't how it is in a race car. So obviously in a race car, you're strapped to the car, and if the car goes up and down over a bump, you should as well, and so you're effectively fixed to the cockpit. In iRacing, we want your cockpit to be fit on screen. We want that on-screen cockpit to be fixed to your real-life cockpit that you're sitting in for real. So we don't want the on-screen car to be moving up and down relative to your steering wheel that you're physically holding, essentially.
Okay.
But at the moment, the graphic settings you've got it on are allowing it to do that. So it's probably imperceptible because it's probably always been like that. But what I need you to do is, on the bottom two options on driver's view, there's one that says rotate with velocity. Just stick that down to 0. You've got it on. I can't quite see, but yeah, you had it on some kind of percentage. The next one up, neck motion, should also be on 0%. So just slide that all the way down. The others are all correct. So roll and pitch chassis, weirdly, although it says 100%, I don't know why the options are almost backwards, but 100% on those two effectively means no movement. So they're correct anyway.
Right.
I think those settings you had that on there are probably standard settings that iRacing comes with. And I believe that is because people who would have been driving on a single screen with like no force feedback, you need some kind of movement on screen to let you know that the car is experiencing certain forces. Whereas with modern kit, with direct drive or just any kind of force feedback, and a ultra wide screen or triples or whatever, you've got better information than a fake kind of car movement on screen would give you. So those things will just now fix your car cockpit to your real cockpit. So that's the first thing. So that's done. Next thing, I was going to ask you, it didn't look like you were running with a live delta on the screen. Is that true? Is that the case? Like, are you...
Yeah, I've got a dashboard on my wheel that I use the delta on there.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. I just, because I was only looking at your screen, I couldn't see it. That's fine. That makes a lot more sense. I was wondering how you're getting around not seeing whether or not you're improving or not. Okay, so...
when you use this lap delta, because on my dash, I don't really have control over what it's measuring me against.
Yeah,
so
okay.
On this one, what would you recommend?
Okay, so you've got a couple of options, and I switch between them. I either go against my best or against my optimal. If I'm really trying to learn a track and I'm trying to perfect a circuit, I go on optimal. If I'm in a session and it's like, the race is happening very soon and I've got qualifying up next or whatever, I don't really care so much about the optimal. I just want to know that I'm going to improve versus what I've been capable of doing recently in this session. So it's like a realistic lap I'm trying to beat, and then I do it against best. But if I'm trying to learn a track, I put it against optimal, and then you're kind of making sure you're always squeezing the best out of it you can. But yeah, that's not a deal breaker. Okay, so next thing then, in terms of driving, You were driving really well. So what I want to do is get you to watch my screen. I need to turn this music off. It's really annoying, actually. I thought it'd be better, but it's just way worse. I'm just going to mute that.
I can't even hear it.
You can't hear it, but you'll hear it back when you watch the video back. If you watch the recording of this session.
Oh, okay.
There's just like dance music over the top of us what we're doing. Okay, so can you see my screen now?
I can, yeah.
Cool. Okay, and is the resolution high enough that it's like properly watchable?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm just going to basically go back on board with your last lap there, your best lap. I'm going to go outside the car, and I'm just going to get you to tell me what it felt like all the way around, whether this was a good one, a bad one, if there's anything you can spot that you would have done differently. Because I don't want to tell you a thing and spend 5 minutes explaining, oh, you should have done X, if you knew that already and you just didn't mean to do what you actually did. So we'll just watch a lap, and then we'll have a little chat afterwards. So I'm going to pause this at various points. Right, so turn 1. So
yeah, so I was a little wide there, and I still struggle with... I'm pretty good at picking out braking points.
Yeah.
I've read and I've heard other people talking to the idea of picking out something to mark like your turning in point.
Okay.
And I haven't really done that, so I tend to just kind of practice and practice and practice until I nail it. And that corner I tend to overshoot a fair bit.
Yeah,
but when I take it in shallower, I find I have to drop a little more speed.
Okay,
and I think this is me trying to emulate what I've seen other people do, which is they somehow manage to turn in earlier and carry more speed than I'm able to do.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is have a look at what I did, because I did a few laps just before this session. And because whenever I do my laps, I'm not consciously thinking about them. So I am terrible at saying, oh, right, yeah, you did this. What I was doing was X. I need to watch what I did to tell myself what I was doing. Because just like you described there, I also don't tend to have many marker points. Sometimes I do, depending on the situation. Most of the time I go on feel, when it feels like the right time to turn in. And that is essentially just my driving brain looking at the angle of what's ahead of me and the speed that I'm going and calculating what can I get away with, what's probably the best compromise. But let's just have a look. So, for example, we'll just make a note of where you began turning in here. We won't always go into quite so much detail, but this is quite nice just to... Because that was quite a good lap. It's quite nice to go over this bit by bit, and we'll just work out if there's any trends that we can see. Like, if you're always turning in way too early or way too late or whatever, then it will become obvious.
Yeah.
But so the first thing is, so you're starting to turn kind of 2/3 of the way between this white line and this black kind of line on the track here. That's when you start to peel away from the left. And one thing to note is we were never all the way on the left. I know it sounds really pedantic, but we had a little bit more room to the left. Let's now see whether or not I am practicing what I preach and whether or not I did that. I'll just grab this lap here and see what I was doing. So I am, at the moment, on the white line. Let's see whether I stay there. Okay, so also, it's somewhere between this white line and the next one, I believe, is where I'm going to start turning. Yeah, so I think your turning point is pretty much exactly where mine is. It's just, the only difference is I'm just starting, like, a foot further to the left. But it's not, that's not the end of the world. It's just every single centimetre further wide you can begin is a fraction of a degree less lock you're going to need at the maximum lock point somewhere later on. So yeah, I think we're pretty similar there. Do I make the apex is the next thing. Yes, okay, so this maybe is going to be the telling thing. The angle that I'm forcing the car to be at this point in the corner. So I wish I could have a split screen here and look at both together. Obviously, that'll be the data when we look at it later. When we've done a few
3 red
laps.
sections to the curbing there.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it.
You're much sharper.
So we're on the red, the third from end red curb and really staying on it as much as possible. Okay, so let's then see what happens to you next. Sorry, we have to keep... This is the fiddly bit, having to kind of flick between each time. But fortunately, both of our laps were the last one, so at least I can find the lap easily. But yeah, so turning point similar. But at this point, I think you are eagerly getting back on the power, almost like now. There, so we're already kind of back on the power, even though the car has walked... The car's had a little bit of a walk wide. One thing I didn't look at was what speed we were doing. So let's look at the speed as we're kind of heading into the corner. We're doing 114k here, and the minimum speed you get down to is 111. I know this looks like we're going into crazy detail for one corner, but
no, this is...
We won't quite do this every single place, but So 111k was your minimum, and
Yeah.
you were back on the gas. This is where I'm starting to get back on the gas now. So, and my minimum speed, let's have a look.
It was 107.
So it's still going down, yep. So we're already going lower than yours. I think you're right, 107. And then getting back on the gas. Okay, so straight away, I'm learning as I'm watching this, because like I said, I wasn't conscious of what I was doing when I was doing it. So this is all being revealed to me as it is to you. But what I've noticed then is I am not focused on trying to carry quite as much speed as you are. I think you want to go faster than I want to. I think my subconscious is probably saying, I really want to focus on a good exit here, as long as we're tidy towards the apex. So from here up to the curb, as long as we're not untidy and sliding wide, it doesn't matter that the minimum speed is a bit lower, because we're going to get such a good drive off the corner, and we've really not gone any further in terms of distance than we need to, because I'm as tight as I can possibly be here. In fact, I think we're like almost on the grass at that point. There's no... it doesn't matter that I'm going slightly slower, because I'm always going forwards and I'm going tight. So I think that's the key things there. So that's turn one. Let's flip back on board with you. If it lets me. Let's try again. I'm clicking on things that are off the screen that you can see. If my mouse just disappears. Right. So we'll go back through that again. This time I'll just go through it in slight slow-mo. Just so I can observe it. Yeah, so we've just basically gone in a bit too quick, and that's part of the reason why you haven't made the apex, is just because you've run a bit wide with the oversteer mid-corner. So not the end of the world. We just know the target is actually go a little bit slower, and just be super tidy and make sure you hit the apex, and don't be too worried about getting on the power before you get to that apex. Just make sure you definitely nail it at a nice angle. Okay, right, so next corner. This one, I know for a fact we're doing it differently, because I could see this in the data really, really early on when I looked today. In fact, let's watch it in full speed so I can actually hear the gears. I know you can't hear the engine revs when I'm replaying these back, but I can.
Yep.
And you'll hear it on the video if you watch it later. So you've gone down a gear, nice apex, and neat exit. So just like in the data I saw earlier, you're actually really good at this corner. I think you're potentially losing time by going in a gear lower, but it's definitely not night and day. This is not a big difference. It's going to look slightly different probably to my lap in a moment, but I wouldn't say you want to change this one too much. You seem to have quite a good handle on the speed you can carry in here. So the only thing I want to check is the actual speed themselves, the speed itself. We will look at this on the data in a minute, but just for the moment. So your minimum is like 126 on the approach. So you're speeding back up again from here, basically. You're already, maybe it flicked to 125 briefly, but yeah, you're already then increasing the speed because you're so much under control early on. And then I don't think you ever are close to running out of track or slowing down. No, your speed is just always increasing. And then you're up to 141 or so on the exit curve. So that's good. I'm just going to see what mine was. And you may well even be quicker than me. There's going to be parts on the track where you probably are faster. What is going on? Why am I not on board? There we go. So let's just see that. So,
part of what I struggle with this corner is coming out of the previous corner.
Yep, because you were quite what?
Should I be using the full track?
I don't think so. If you've nailed the first corner, so yeah, you're right. You were over here somewhere, and then you were having to get all the way back over to the right, which means when you arrive at the right, you've got very little time for the car to be settled and turn in, and you might even be having to go from turning right to immediately turning left, rather than having this nice little straight-on portion. We'll check that on yours in a moment. But yeah, you can see when I exit this corner, I'm trying to not go wide. I don't need to go wide, in fact. If I went wide, it would be for the sake of it. Purely because of the line from turn one.
Even when I don't get oversteer on turn one, I tend to go wider than you are here. And then I struggle to get back wide for turn two, where I feel like you need the extra width more to open up the corner.
Yeah, and it might be...
To your point, I struggle to get any straight line to actually settle the car. I find I end up losing balance quite a bit when I try to cut back in.
So do you remember you were on the throttle pretty early here on that lap where you went wide? I don't know whether you do that every lap, so just that's the caveat here. But assuming that's your normal technique, that is just, I think, just pushing you wider out here. And that is almost like it's a false economy. You want to get on the gas because you want to go out of the corner quickly, but because the nature of this particular corner in this car with these skinny tires, dirty track, whatever, means you run wider, you end up having two problems. You've travelled further, which is obviously negative, and you struggle then to get back over to this side. So if we can fix that turn one a little bit, just be super, super tidy here, that might then also help you be all the way to the right here and under control.
Okay.
And you can see I am getting to full throttle and staying on it. So from basically touching the curb, I'm on the gas, and then once I'm at full throttle now, I don't come off it. So it's not like I'm having to work to stay away from the edge. It naturally doesn't go all the way wide just because of that line. The line here, though, you weren't that much... I know there's a Yokohama sign in the way, so maybe if I just go to here. I'm not touching the grass. I'm slightly wider than you are, but not a massive amount. You weren't giving away a load there anyway. But let's see what's different here. So I think the minimum speed we looked at yours was 136, 135, which I think is pretty similar, unless I'm just misremembering what.
Thought mine was 120.
Was it?
Something. Maybe 125.
Okay, if that's the case, then I think our downshift is losing some time here because I'm staying in the same gear. So I'm whatever gear I'm up to. I don't remember what it is. Is it third maybe? I'm staying in it and just hovering on and off the gas and then driving off. And I think our exit speed is about the same, 141. I think that's roughly what I remember yours was. So in that case, all the gain is on entry. It's all the entry speed. Yeah, and in fact, not only am I not going down a gear, I'm actually on the gas still, kind of flit until about there. There's that one big lift by here. This is the only point in the corner where my feet are doing basically nothing. But up until that point, you can see a bit of a pedal blend where I'm manipulating a bit of brake, a bit of acceleration, just to try and keep the speed up as high as possible without running wide and without over-slowing it at the same time. So you see this kind of like on, off, now. That was without... Sorry, go on.
You had an overlap there where your foot was on the brake and the accelerator?
Yeah, briefly, there's this little bit here, just trying to keep it as a stable platform. Again, I didn't know I was doing this. I'm finding this out now as you are, but
right.
But I know why I'm doing it because I can imagine why. That is just to keep the car stable. So I'm trying to keep the revs up, keep the speed up, but I don't want don't want the car to dip all the way onto the nose or pitch all the way rearward and then get understeer. So that braking is really to stop understeer. That's just so I can accelerate a little bit, but without over accelerating all at once and taking the weight off the nose, if that makes sense. That's just so it stay, and that then just allows that bit more entry speed. You see, the car's not really doing anything untoward. There's those little kind of, it's not really a wobble or a slide or a moment. It's just like slight attitude changes. If I do it in slow-mo, it's like, see a little rear slide there, but no correction. A little rear slide there as we get on the curb, but again, no correction, and I'm full throttle. So it's just knowing there's enough grip that the rear can dance a tiny bit, but we can keep kind of pushing on through. And I think your technique with the going down a gear, you're achieving the same thing in as much as you're taking a nice tight line. It's very smooth. You're making the car do what you want, but it's probably doing it at 10k slower. As a consequence. So this is not going to be an easy thing necessarily to change. You might find going in here a gear higher with a bit more entry speed initially means you run wide out on the exit here. I certainly ran wide here a few times onto the dirt.
And that's been my struggle, that when I've done officials on this previously, I have found most people are going through a gear higher than me.
Right, okay.
But when I try and replicate that, sometimes I can hit the corner, sometimes I can't. I can't do it consistently. So then I default back to what I know will consistently get me through the race.
And you're right, it was 126, not 136. So yeah, so there is a 10k an hour additional speed we can carry. But as you saw from that little bit of footage when I was showing you mine, you are having to do quite a bit of work to do that, which makes sense if you're saying you're struggling to do it consistently. Yeah, it's your gear lower is a safety net, and I know you're about to do that later in the lap too because I saw you doing it in real time. There's another couple of places where I think for speed we can be a gear higher, but you just have to be comfortable with the car traveling quicker and not overreact to whatever it might do at that slightly higher speed. So for this
Yeah.
one, let's put a pin in this one. I don't necessarily want you to change this too much at the moment because the worst thing would be for you to then now spend 10 laps going off every lap and getting pissed off with it. But the main thing is just to know that there is definitely more. There's more speed available from the car through here, even if we only increase it by 5k instead of 10k. And I don't expect you to look at the speedo, but just in terms of feel, we can edge that speed up slightly. And we'll talk about how maybe to try this a gear higher without it just going to crap and annoying you.
Okay.
So let's just put a pin in that. We've seen that corner. Well, I know there's some time to be found there, so that's fine. That will probably be a trend on every other track as well, by the way. If we were to go, anytime I see someone doing a thing like this, if we take the same car, go to Silverstone or whatever, there'll be corners there which are similar kinds of corners where you'll probably end up doing the same thing. So we can fix it here. We'll fix it at every other track that's got a high speed on the edge corner like this. So
Okay.
that's why I like this track. This Okayama track's got lots of variation without being too long. Obviously, this whole section here, you're absolutely fine. This is all perfect. There's nothing to change here.
I'll say this next corner coming up.
Yeah.
I struggle with big open corners like this, especially because there's maybe 2 corners put together here, right?
Yeah, this is a really tricky corner. This is I love it.
I
love
don't
it,
know
but it's
what
really
line to take or what speed to do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of laps driving around this track in lots of different cars, and invariably, the best, fastest way through this corner, because a corner isn't just this little bit isolated, it's how this bit affects the next straight and everything. You know, it's about the best compromise for this whole section. So basically, from where we are now until the breaking point for the hairpin, that's all dictated by how we take this corner. And so because the next straight is so long, it makes this really crucial to get right. Invariably, I find the best way is super tidy at this apex here and staying tight. Don't be tempted to let the car run wide and take any extra distance than you need to. It seems to just bleed speed then all the way down the straight. Let's just see how you were doing it. And
I was dropping the first gear here, which I'm not sure is...
yeah, so I definitely don't go down to first. So your line through the middle there, this is exactly correct. This is exactly the right place on the track. The only problem is you've managed to do this very easily because we're going quite a long way below the limit of the speed of the car. So that line from here to here, this is really nice, but I can already see the way the car is able to turn here, the way you can turn the wheel and the car just immediately goes tighter means we weren't on the limit at all of the front grip. The car shouldn't have let you do that. It should have resisted, you know, if you're trying to apply that lock there, maybe it would have got a little bit tighter, but it shouldn't have just gone straight to the curb like you did, like you told it to. So, a couple of things then, before we even look at mine. I think we're already bleeding a bit too far off the side. So that's I mean, sometimes it'll be dirty or worse being at the edge. I think for this one we do want to be at the side a little bit longer. And you almost kind of knew that because you got to here and you stopped turning. Like you got to this point and you were like, oh yeah, I've gone a bit early. And then you make a second turn now. Like this is when you make your main turn into the corner. So I might be talking rubbish when we look at mine, but I think I probably stay left a bit longer than that. As we said, this line's good. We just need to try and achieve this line without going... What speed are we doing? 99? What was your minimum?
I hit 90 or 92.
92, yeah, 92 minimum. So we need to be able to do that without going down to first gear. Which again is hard because this car is very floaty. The rear's going to want to move. The engine's behind you, so if you do carry a bit too much speed in, you've got the momentum of the rear trying to carry itself around. And you know, you've felt it loads of times, I'm sure, where suddenly you just lose the rear in this car, and it's a pain in the backside. You have like a big oversteer moment almost from nowhere, just from the momentum on the way into a corner. So you don't want that to happen, but we need to find the balance between what you're doing here and that. But the line's great, so you're doing the right thing. That's all fine. It's just allowing you to stay a bit tighter than it should do through here. It should be trying to force you a bit wider purely because you're going a bit quicker, but not being over here is the key thing. So you're doing that right, and then obviously we open up onto the straight. So let's just compare that. Let's see. The entry speed I think is probably going to be the main difference. So we're 92 I think. So here we go. Okay, I'll watch it in full speed and then we'll slow it down.
again, 10 kilometers quicker.
Okay. And exactly the same line as you though there. Like that the line where you're trying to place the car is really, really good. So that's actually one big task we can almost like cross off, because although you said you weren't sure what the line was here, you've come to the correct conclusion regardless. So
Okay.
that's good that you're naturally finding the right parts of the track. We just have to maximise them, that's all. And thankfully, I'm not talking crap. I am using all the track here, like to the point of just about touching the dirt. And when I peel off the outside, I'm not unpeeling, if you see what I mean. That is one smooth arc, very deliberate from there to over here somewhere. That's.
Yep.
I'm glad. I just never trust that that's actually what I'm going to see when I look at the video. I could conceivably be doing something really bad. So one thing you might notice, I think there's a little bit of rear movement, just a tiny bit. You just look at the angle of the car. Although I'm in, so I've just finished braking. Sorry, I'm just learning myself again. Just looking at what I'm doing on the brakes. I'm trailing in. I'm holding the brakes up. Now they're off. There's a slight moment of coasting. Then we're back on the gas. So although that's in slow-mo, so that moment of coasting looked bigger than it was. If we watch that back in a full speed and look at the pedal inputs, it's trail brake, off, back on the gas. And that's it. So it's like the moment we finish slowing down, we're speeding up. So there's a very, very definite minimum speed point about here. And from that point, we're speeding back up. So I imagine when we look at the graph, the speed trace will drop down, 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 down. There'll be a very brief point, and then it's kind of raising back up again immediately from that. So we don't want like a plateau. Although this is quite a long corner, because it's so wide and it opens up on the exit, it does have quite a definite shape. It has a quite definite line where you're decelerating to here, and then you're accelerating from here. It's like straight away. It's not a long enough corner and tight enough that you spend a long time off the gas. So that's just something to remember. I can't remember what you did. But the key, the absolute key, is maximising the entry width and carrying more speed. Don't go to first, basically. If you go in second and you lose the rear, that's fine. We'll just do that until you don't lose the rear. If you're losing the rear going in second, you're probably just going too quick. So we still probably want to achieve a similar feel to when you're going down to first. We're just going to be travelling 10k quicker, that's all. But the car should be balanced. There's no reason why it should be completely sideways or trying to kill you or anything like that. This does not look...
Do you start braking?
Let's have a look. That's a really good point. So, let's look for a marker point from on board, because that's a bit more relevant. So
you're braking way before I am.
So well before the 50, and this is obviously because I want to be very under control all the way through. So that's interesting. So you're braking later, but getting down to a lower speed. So if we look above, can I do an above shot here? Hang on, sorry, just fumbling the camera key. So if I go here and then, I thought I could go a bit higher than that. There we go. So where it's the braking is here. There's no good marker points anywhere near here. We're in this plain bit where there's some grass and some fence. But yeah, okay. I think the best thing then in terms of marker is before the 50 meter board. So okay, it's halfway between the 100 and the 50. So it's
yes, I'd brake a little closer to the 50 board.
Okay. It's just after halfway. You don't have to do it exactly the same as I'm doing it. This is just a bit of a guide of what's possible. And then... See, there's very slight corrections. This is something I should have done earlier, actually, because we can see what my steering wheel was doing here. So, very gentle turn in. And, yeah, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of correction. I'm never having to really apply opposite lock. It's just having to not over apply the actual lock. So I'm just kind of it's just kind of modulating how much steering angle. Right, we can fast forward now to the next corner. Now you are going to be better than me here, because on this lap I know I fluffed the hairpin. So this is going to be a place where I think we're going to see you doing a better job. Let's see how you're doing it. Sorry this is taking so long for this. It's because it's our first ever. No. It's the first ever deep analysis of a lap you've done, so I just want to make sure we get any key traits. Okay, so without looking at mine, and I'm actually going to compare against a different lap to my best one, because I'll show you why. I'll show you why my one's shit through here, but then I'll show you a good version. You do this pretty well here. We've left a little bit of space to the side by the looks of it, but not a lot. I'd say the only issue here is our compromise you've chosen is... Oh, that's quite cool, actually, now that's showing us from directly above. You've chosen a late apex, and the following straight is very short. So there's less benefit to getting a late apex and a really good exit here than there would be on other corners. I find, because of the nice camber on this corner... In fact, let's go back to our previous view, because it was slightly easier to look at. Let's go down here. Sorry about this, just getting used to the replay controls. There we go. Okay, so let's get rid of that thing there. So you're going in looking for an apex that's a bit further around the corner, and at this point here, oh, that's not helpful, is it? I'm just going to do a different view. I love your livery, by the way. That's really cool. Let's go for this one and just go a bit further out. No, the angle's right. Okay. Okay, so when I'm driving into this corner, I want the car to basically be touching the curb from about here, like quite early on. Because it's so tight, you can really save a bunch of distance by hugging the inside tight. Not this bit here. Obviously, you don't want to get near the green curb at the initial part of the corner. But somewhere around the middle, I want to be really, really tight and saving distance. Because although you've done a late apex, I know we've not quite hit the apex, but I can see what you're trying to do here. It's such a short straight, and you're having to brake by like here, your benefit is massively reduced. If this was another long straight, that line you just did there would be perfect. So that's the only thing I'd say. I want to tuck in about here and get really hooked into the inside. That does mean staying off the throttle longer, so you have to be disciplined in not getting on the power too soon, otherwise you'll just push really wide. But it'll be like a slingshot round there, and you'll see on the lap time delta, it'll be like initially you'll have a slight loss because you're probably going a little bit quicker here, going wide because you're carrying a bit more speed. But then it'll be like gain, just from the distance. And then on the exit, it'll kind of converge and it'll be somewhere similar. So
does that set you up to be further right for the following corner?
Yeah, you've certainly got the option. Yeah, and you do want to be all the way right for the following corner. Let me just have a look and show you how to not do it, first of all. This is just braking too late. I knew I was on a good lap and just pushed too hard, so that's all. So this is the bad one.
Okay.
And actually, that bad one ended up looking pretty similar to the line you did on purpose. I just didn't do it on purpose. So I knew I'd gone past my ideal turning point here. You see the rear is locking up, and I've just gone in too fast, basically. Yeah. And I try and get away with it by getting a good exit, but I know I've already lost the time. So now let's look at one that wasn't bad, and probably, what was another half decent one? 37, I'm guessing. Maybe this 8. Yeah, let's go for that one. Hopefully this one's alright. Okay, so middle of the corner. So it doesn't look quite as exaggerated, but you see we're touching the curb from the midpoint. So it's still a slightly... You could say the apex is reasonably late. You know, I'm aiming to touch here, but it's...
You're tucked in a lot more.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go wide to cut back. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
The best compromise is to shorten the distance, but still make sure you get a good exit. And let's see, is this exit any good? And yeah, it's still not throwing me over here. Because we're going quite slow, it's not chucking me super wide, and it means I'm still able to get easily back over to the right-hand side for that. So that's something to bear in mind. By the way, I know this is taking ages, and so I don't expect you to have remembered everything when we get back to the start. We're good. We'll talk about some stuff and focus on some key things when we get back to the start. Right, let's go back to your one. And most of these sessions will be a lot more of you driving than me banging on. Right, so let's get through to the next bit. Now, it's these next double left that is one of the corners where I was saying you're going down a gear more than I think I would. So,
okay.
So you've gone down there, up a gear, back down again. So this is quite an interesting one. It took me a bit of playing to find what I thought was the best compromise through these corners. So first of all, just a note again. Although I don't get all the way right because I'm probably scared of the grass or something. I don't know. I just didn't get there in time. You've definitely got. You could at least halve that gap and still be very safe to the grass. and give yourself an easier corner here. So at this point, I was deliberately going up a gear, even though I didn't actually need it, because I wanted to avoid any gear changing in the next 2 corners. I wanted to keep the car stable through those 2 corners so I could carry the most possible speed. So you're not on the rev limiter here. I'm not on the rev limiter here. We don't need to be a gear higher, but I was doing it anyway to carry that entry speed in. But
Sorry, so what gear were you in going in?
let's have a look. So I'm going to listen to you because I don't know. I'm just doing what it feels like is right. So let's see what you're.
So I think I would upshift to second and then I'd downshift again to first on turning.
Okay.
Then upshift to second, downshift to first for that next turning again.
Yeah. So if you're up to second, I must stay in second. Yeah, I'm definitely not up to third, so I must stay in second through here. In fact, that's definitely what I'm doing. Definitely. Let's go back to where we were. That one. Yeah, so I'm up to second, and then staying in second, but turning in pretty early to try and really touch this curb and just be very smooth. Like that, your line's good, and this is good too. I noticed straight away you're using all this nice exit. So that, again, the lines you're taking, so this is something I've learned about you in the last hour or so. Your lines are naturally good. So it's all about controlling the car a bit more on the limit on those same lines, a slightly higher speed. That's where we're going to find most time. Because all of this is great. Everything, all of those lines through there, really, really good. It's exactly what we're aiming for. We just want to be going a bit quicker when we're doing it.
Yeah, okay.
So, gear higher here, and then stay in second for this whole section. Don't go up to second here, obviously, because you're already in it. Don't go back down to first here. Just stay in second for that whole bit. Okay, I'll just show you my one quickly. I won't dwell on that corner too much because you're already doing it well. It's just the speed and the gear through there. So, same again. This is much easier doing this fast forward on this track than it is on the Nordschleifer. Okay, so I am most of the way across here. Staying in second.
Yep.
You can hear the revs are lower. I've not actually on this lap managed to hit this curb very well, so let's see what happens. Exactly the same line as you. Almost identical. The only thing that's different is actually you did a better entry here. But I bet when we look at the speed, I was going probably 10k or something quicker again. So it's still better to be slightly scruffy but carrying way more speed. But But yeah, second for sure. I think if we look at the data, we'll probably see that as like one of the steps on the delta where there's probably a chunk of time. Okay, let's switch back to you through the next one. Considering it's a short track, it takes quite long to review one lap, doesn't it? Right, why can't I see you? There we go. This is where I need the music for these little quiet bits. Right, here we go. Okay, so that obviously is just a mistake. So I remember when you did that. So I know you wouldn't normally want to be sideways there. You're in the right gear.
And this part of the track is where I felt, you mentioned after that the track was warmer. This is where I felt the lack of grip
the
compared to what
mechanical
I was doing
grip.
the past couple of days.
Yeah, so this probably isn't your finest ever version of doing these corners. So you've gone in maybe a fraction too quick, and obviously we kept the lock on a bit tight and the rear came, so whatever, you saved it, that's a decent effort. But normally you'd be better than that, so I won't judge that too much. This, I think you want to probably try and get a bit further left before this corner. I'm pretty sure I don't get all the way over, just because there's not time. But you get to the middle and kind of give up straight away.
Are you going as wide right as I do? Coming out of that corner there, are you that far wide right?
We'll find out in a moment. I don't know. I'm not sure. But definitely, I'm sure I'm wider here on the approach to this one.
Okay.
So let's have a look. And I want to be touching this curb all the way around, basically, or certainly from here. Let's see, do we get there? Yeah, so this is just
I overshot that one.
Yeah, this is just a mistake lap. So I'm not judging you based on this. I know you probably wouldn't be doing quite that. But the gears are right through there. That's the only part on the track that the lines haven't been right, and that's because the car did a little thing that you didn't want it to do, and that forced you wide. But just so we have a reference, let's look at that same bit here. This would be much easier on 2 different screens for sure. I can do it. I've done it plenty of times where I've post-produced a video of side by side with someone, but We just can't do that in the moment. Right, let's have a look. So I'm still, again, literally touching the white line on the entrance just to maximise the width. A little bit slower a little bit slower to make sure it's tidy, because the tidiness around here is more important than the entry speed, obviously, because it's super tight. And as you saw, any moment of oversteer, you lose bucket loads of time. So very, very tidy. So there's the answer. No, nowhere near as wide on the exit there, because of how tidy and slow it is at the apex. And quite a bit, at least a car width further left as a consequence of that. You actually had time to get a bit further left, even on the line you took. But yeah, that's where we're aiming to be. And then kind of typical mid-corner apex. But I'm sure you probably would have done something similar if the rear hadn't broken away on you. Just so you get a really clean exit. Now, I'm pretty sure there's something in this next corner, which is an easy bit of lap time gain. Let's just get back to your lap.
I think, do I downshift for this next part?
I think you, at very least, I think you lift. But I don't have your throttle and brake trace on here, but you can tell me. Let's see if we can hear it. Well, you won't hear it now, but I'll hear it. Yeah, there's a hesitation. So you have probably a half lift into here. We'll look at the data in a moment just to kind of wrap up all the stuff we've been talking about. But
when I'm nailing this corner, I don't lift.
Okay.
But I struggle to consistently nail that corner.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
I think, especially after those past two corners where I found I didn't have the grip I thought I would, that was my... Again, I think I default to playing it safe.
Yeah, that's fair enough. The line you're taking, though, is really good. You can actually drop a wheel here on the tarmac. The other side, you don't get an obstruct. As long as you don't go over the yellow, you can get through here being slightly tighter. What that might do is give you the confidence to stay flat because you've got a bit more room. I mean, look, you're nearly doing it there. You're very nearly there. If you go like another 20 centimetres to the right, you almost hook the inside tyre over the edge of the curb here. It like drags you around a bit, and it gives you a bit more margin on the exit because you're just that little bit further to the right in the middle. But yeah, that should be, apart from maybe on lap 1 when the tyres are cold, should be full throttle every single time. I would just keep doing it, even if it goes wrong a couple of times, and I'll watch and see why it goes wrong if it does, but it'll normally only run you wide over here if you've turned in way too late. If you turn in late, then you just run out of time to get the car rotated before you get to the exit. If you do this kind of line you're on here, or even slightly tighter, then you should be able to do it full throttle every time. Then let's look at this final corner. That's a decent effort. So I believe the downshift is correct here. We can be slightly tighter, but in general, what you're trying to achieve here is good. This is one of the times you've been the closest to the white line. Very smooth picking up the throttle, using all the width on the exit. That's actually really, really nice. So just to wrap up, I'll just have a little look and see how I did it. Definitely full throttle though through that right. There's not a huge time gain, funnily enough. That's actually not a place where you're going to gain or lose a lot by going full throttle.
Okay.
Let's see. Do I use the extra bit or not? No, I don't. So I'm actually even wider than you there on this lap, and I'm still easily full throttle. Like, absolutely fine. So definitely the target though. If I do it right, I'm a bit tighter. And then, down a gear. Only difference is a slight bit of manipulation forcing the car to get tighter in the middle. So when I realised probably about here that it wasn't going to make the apex, I do a bit of forcing to make sure because I just know it's very important. So I'm just having a look down here at the throttle and brake. Do I do anything? No, just a lift. So a very big deliberate lift to get the weight on the nose to make this happen. But that's all. So I obviously knew at this point I was like, oh no, now. Right, it happens in such a short period of time when you sit in full speed, but it's just a little bit of trail braking, and then, okay, I want to get on the gas. It's starting to push a little bit wide, so we're going to come fully off, wait for the trajectory to change, then back on. It's like, it happens in a heartbeat, but that's the only reason it gets tighter, but I know the line you're aiming for is basically exactly the same as that. Right, okay. So before I get you to drive another few laps, just want to have a quick look at the data, which should have uploaded by now. So here we go. This was your old lap, so let's find a new one. So what did you do in that session? What was your best one there? It was 39,485, so let's just find that one if it's in here. 39. That one here, here we go. Right, so 39,485, so it's that lap. I'll delete this other one because it was in different conditions. Change you to red so we know the difference. Right, so hopefully you can see this and it's clear enough. So in each of the different situations, you are the red and I'm the blue. So we spoke about turn 1 at length. Basically, down on the delta bar here, do you use data a lot? You probably answered this question already in a questionnaire I sent you.
Yeah, I've used it a little bit with VRS. It's one of those things I can understand the basics of reading it, but I struggle with then applying that in the car.
Yeah, no problem. So the real quick reference, obviously, our delta bar down the bottom here. Anytime it takes a step, we know that's a chunk of lap time lost. And so there are a few steps. We've got turn 1 to turn 2. This here is like a little one, so you don't lose that much time compared to me in the first corner. The exit of turn 1 through turn 2, that's a little step as well. We spoke all about the reasons why. But then the big ones are here. So the right hand, basically the corners where you're going down an extra gear probably are the big ones.
Yeah.
So that corner at the end there, there's a big chunk there. And we can look at why. If I zoom in on that one corner on the speed trace, you can see, although we brake somewhere at a similar point, you're right in that you're lifting off later than me, slightly later, 7 or 8 meters. You're slowing it down to a much lower minimum much earlier, exactly as we were saying. In fact, that's more like 20k difference, isn't it? At that point, 92 to 111. That's because my minimum isn't 20k, but at the point you're doing 92, I'm still going 112. So that's where the time lost. That's why you have the big down on the delta. That's the exact point where suddenly the time's lost. And then the fact that my minimum is low later as you're starting to catch up with the minimum speed, it doesn't matter because the loss has already happened early on. So this is exactly what it looked like when we were watching the video. So it's good just to check on the data. Into the hairpin, not really any loss. Basically stays the same, but that's because I did it wrong. So definitely there is still time to find there if you don't do it how I did it on that lap. So just basically hugging it a bit tighter earlier, not trying to get a late apex. So that's easy enough. But it's these two here, this double left. You can see on the speed trace how much you're slowing it down. You can see you've got your extra downshift here and here as well. And that extra slowing down means you are briefly quicker at this point on the early exit, but the time's already gone. You can't possibly make back this time. Sorry if I'm teaching you how to suck eggs, but basically the amount of area in between the two speed lines, if they added up to the same, then effectively that would be the same time loss or gain. So if the amount this red line was above the blue line here, was a similar shape to this or similar area, then it would be much of a muchness. But you can see that's smaller than that, so the time gain is better by carrying better entry speed, even though you suffer a little bit on the exit. That's the first one, and then the same with the second one, although the second left, there's no negative to the exit. I actually don't get any negative on the exit, just get all the cake and get to eat it here. So it's the entry speed. That, I said we might see like a common theme through looking through your lap.
Yep.
I think we've uncovered it. It's basically confidence carrying speed up to the apex. That's where the vast majority of the time difference is, because the lines are good and the exits tend to be good. It's most obvious here and here, but obviously it was also down at that bottom hairpin there as well. So we'll just look towards the end of the lap. Let's have a look at these last few corners. So this is where you can't really judge, because obviously you got a bit sideways. So yeah, you were a bit quicker in the middle of the first hairpin, but then you got sideways and lost it on the exit. In fact, look at the steering trace. Look at that opposite lock down on the steering trace. You have a massive armful of lock down there, which is obvious. And then again, over here, you have another armful of opposite lock in the other direction. So can't really read too much into that. Here is the lift I was talking about through the fast left. So you didn't lift a lot on that lap. To be honest, that probably made no difference, because it's like a 14% maximum lift, and you did a shorter line than me. I imagine when I'm looking at the delta as I move this along here, between the entry, so you were 1.659, and by the exit, 682. It's a couple of hundredths on that lap, so it's not a big difference. And then the final corner here, let's just have a look at that. This is why I really like this software compared to VRS. It feels a little bit more user friendly in the way that I can quickly flit around the lap. So you actually went in a little bit quicker than me into that final corner. So that was good. And then the time loss was because you had to get off the gas a bit where it was a bit wide. That was all. Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Yeah. So that's a really interesting one, because what you did there initially was really good. You then just, I think, got slightly too greedy here. You just came off the brakes a bit earlier than me. That's what it is. So at this point here, we're basically the same. You then, on the red braking trace down here, you've stopped your braking, whereas I'm just keeping a little bit of weight on the nose slightly longer, and that's why the exit, my angle on the exit's just better. That's all. It's what you were trying to do was pretty good. It just didn't quite work out. So definitely last corner is not one to focus on. Turn one a little bit. That was more just the, using all the track on the entry, making sure we're really tight at the apex. Turn two, trying to stay a gear higher, but I think that might take a while before we nail that, just because it's a really high speed corner and it's very long. Easy to get that one wrong and run out of track. Because anything you do wrong early, you find out when you're leaving the corner, it's too late. So the big things, the real big time gains that we should actually focus on. Hairpin at the bottom. I call it a hairpin. It's not really a normal hairpin. That one, and then the double left. Those are the three big jumps. Here, and oh, hang on, it doesn't even show. Yeah, actually, it's not as big a jump as it looks. It looks more extreme on the speed graph than it actually is on the delta line down here. So as you enter there, we're 8.8 and a bit tenths down, and when we leave, there's only 2 tenths actually through there. That's interesting. It looks quite extreme, but it's only a couple of tenths. That's more part of a gradual time loss. And the other big chunk is the hairpin losses. So actually, if you eradicated that oversteer moment through those double hairpins, the big one is really that corner down there. You'll still pick up time everywhere else, but this is the one. Yep. That's the low-hanging fruit right there at that corner.
Okay.
So we're gonna brake very slightly earlier, and don't go down to first gear. That's really the main thing. But try and keep the line the same. I don't have a lot more. I always run over on these sessions, by the way, especially because I blab too much, and especially when it's the first one and we spend 15 minutes looking at calibration and stuff. But I'd really like to see you do another 5 laps before I go, and then leave you to practice that for a week. But yeah, sorry, that was me just talking for ages.
No, that's exactly what I signed up for, man.
So let's do that again, another 5 laps. Don't worry if you don't go quicker, because you might struggle to force yourself to do something weird at first. We've changed the view as well, so you're probably going to notice your cockpit not bouncing around. That might feel weird at first as well.
Oh, that does feel weird.
What it should do, though, once you get used to that, and this is how all the pro sim racers have it as well, by the way. Plus, anyone who hasn't just left it on how it is, it should give you more information about what the world is doing around you, rather than the car kind of arbitrarily bouncing up and down over bumps.
Okay. Does that make your screen shake a bit more then?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, because the cockpit is fixed, so the world is probably shaking a bit more around you.
Right. So this one was tighter.
Yeah, that's good.
Wide.
Yeah, that's good. And using all of the width on the way into here, staying in the same gear. That's cool. That's really good. This was keep it the same. Just don't go in too fast and lose the rear.
Right.
Your time loss was...
wider.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry about being flat out through here on lap 1, just because it's cold tyres. This was, again, basically keep the same. Just try and hit that apex if you can. And then down to turn 1. Just make sure we're almost on the white line on the left.
Yeah, see, I instinctively go to get on the throttle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. So stay in this gear. You have to be patient with the gas. You can still kind of play with the throttle a bit. You just have to be patient with it. But don't worry if it feels like it's not accelerating very well, because you know that you've already banked the lap time, because you've already gained a couple of tenths on the entry. So you can afford to lose a little bit in terms of acceleration, because you've already made the gain.
Okay.
It's just kind of getting your head around. Same with the double left-hander on this next section. It's getting your head around the fact, yeah, it might be a little bit slower coming off that corner, but you've already gained a bunch of time, so it doesn't matter.
Hey, jeez. So you talk about the tyres being cold first lap. I feel like it takes me a good 2 or 3 laps to get the tyres to the point where I trust them.
Yeah, it probably isn't far off that, to be honest. I'm going to have a little look at when I started doing... I'll just look at mine. How long did it take? Yeah, lap 3 was the first half decent lap, and actually you're right, lap 4 was when I got my first really fast lap, so... They probably are gradually coming on. But I don't think they get a lot better after that.
Yeah, again, I lifted the... Jeez.
So like I said, I don't expect you to actually go any quicker straight away with this, because it's going to be hard to nail it. Nice. And I'm looking at your delta on your screen now, and I can see, even though you're not yet maximising it, because you're not used to it yet, I can see the early time gains straight away through those corners.
That's a bit mad.
Right, so it
Still
should
not
be...
going wide enough there, hey?
That's okay. This should be flat out this time, though.
Yeah, okay. Okay, this is the lap.
The guy behind has just done a 139.4.
Come on.
So we probably went in a little bit too early that time. Just like got to the inside slightly too early. That's why that was so hard to keep it on the track on the exit.
It's so funny just changing like one thing, like going in a gear higher. I suddenly don't know how much speed to be going in with.
Yeah, because you've been using the fact that you're in first gear as a safety net, because you know you're definitely slow enough. But we just want to be on the limit a bit more than that. That's nice, that was good.
Oh, not third. See, again, I'm used to upshifting there.
Yeah. Don't worry, these habits and stuff will be weird at first. Okay, so definitely full throttle this time through here.
Okay, full throttle.
nice. This is looking good. It's just a case of now keeping on doing this and maximising it with this new style.
Okay.
The guy behind has just done a 139.4.
You're going to gain confidence with this higher entry speed.
Again, I turned it too early, hey?
Yeah, because we actually went in a little bit too slow, which allowed you to turn in too early and get too tight. If you had been going a bit quicker, it wouldn't have actually let you get to the inside that earlier. That early.
Second.
So yeah, turn 2 there. The way you were able to get to that inside curb, I couldn't physically have done that because the speed would have been too high for the front grip to let me. So it's kind of like a problem causing a different problem. That's all. This is nice. So you should be able to accelerate really early, even though you're tight. There's not that much power, so you should be able to really nail the gas out of that hairpin before you're actually leaving it. Alright, let's do 2 more.
Okay. Okay, so turn in later. Again, I did it. Jeez.
Yeah, I think it's we did a downshift, didn't we? So we should be going quick enough that you can't actually do a downshift. Like, doing that downshift would probably spin the car around.
So what gear should I be in there? Third or second? Sorry. That's the third gear?
Into turn 2, it's 1 gear higher than you leave turn 1, if that makes sense. So we shouldn't
Okay,
be...
so-
Whatever gear you arrive there in is the gear we stay in.
Okay. I'm gonna shut that a little.
No, but I think you probably went quicker. I think that's probably... Because you maximised it, I think you probably went quicker than on the previous time.
No. Again, I downshift. Jeez.
It's interesting though, you're more comfortable carrying that higher speed in that lower gear, but we'll be quicker in the higher one, for sure. As soon as we nail it, we'll be.
Braced too late that. Okay, third gear. Don't downshift.
Yeah, so stay in this gear, that's it. And just ride it out, and then nail it. Yeah, that was good. That was a good effort that time. That was a really
Okay.
decent effort. And second gear for this one. So I could see even just from the onboard without looking at data, we still undercooked it in terms of the amount of entry speed. So we were still being a bit too nice to the front tyres there. So that's definitely an area we can still gain time, but leaning on the front tyres a bit more on the way into that particular corner. That was a decent effort.
That was the last one, or one more?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to go purely because I would stay for ages. It's only because I have an unusually busy day, and I've got someone soon. But I just want to say a few things before we finish, though. Like, I'm terrible. I would sit here for 2 hours and just, like, keep banging on. But, so that was really good. I can see, even just with those handful of laps there, you're, like, gradually now getting your head around the making use of the extra entry speed that being in a higher gear will give you. The only problem is you still have, obviously, your old habits, and you're just not used to it yet. You're just not used to this slightly different style. So because you're not used to it, you're not making the most of it. And so there is more time to be gained. There might be times there where it looked like I would have been quicker going down a gear. Like my old technique was better. But that's almost because you're driving the new technique still a bit like the old one and not really getting the maximum from it. But the more you get used to that, even on that lap, that 38, you still were really slow into the hairpin before the long straight. Just over slowing it, but that's like a few tenths there easily once you've just done a few more laps and you've gotten used to what you can get away with. You've just almost
that one you're talking about, the one at the bottom of the hill.
The one before the really really long straight.
Okay.
That's definitely still the key place. You've got a bit more front grip than you're giving the car credit for, basically. You don't have to do, I say this to everyone, but you don't have to do all of your deceleration with the brakes. You can do the initial portion of the deceleration with the brakes, and then the last 30% or 40% or whatever, up to the apex, is literally just the fact that you're turning into the corner is going to scrub off a bunch of that speed. But at the moment, you need 100% braking, and by the time you get to the apex, you've done 120% when you combine how much you've done on the brakes and the scrub from the tyres into the corner. So we're just we're just going slightly below the limit of the front tyre in that transition from turn-in to apex. That's all. We can just lean on it a bit more, carry that bit more speed, and you'll just see the green delta bar like go nuts. It'll be so much gain. So right, there we go. That's the thing to concentrate on until next week. Oh, before I go anywhere, and thank you for listening to me blab there, by the way, for all that time. Let me just go to the calendar so I can just check next week. So today is the 17th. So I've got you in at 1 to 2 p.m. Same time, isn't it? Next Saturday. Is that right?
Yep.
Cool.
Do you want me to keep working on Okayama till then?
Yeah. So it's a good question. Let's see. What are the next tracks?
It's VIR, which I don't really know either. So I was just going to skip that week and focus.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm in a league as well, so I was just going to focus on the league.
Okay, that's fine. Ordinarily, I'd say, right, I've got plenty of time in the week, and I'll learn VIR and give you tons of good info for that. I actually don't know the track at all, and I'm not going to be home until our session next week, basically. So I'm going to have very little prep time, just because of this weird job that I'm doing at the moment. It isn't normally like this. Normally, I've got loads of time. So maybe carry on at Okayama since we haven't nailed it. Let's use this as like a test track for the next week. Because it would be good to, before switching to another track, it'd be good to like pretty nail the stuff we were just talking about today. Because if you can, you're going to benefit everywhere else anyway. So, that would be good. I had one more question for you. Have you got a session are you one of my people? Yes, you are. Right. Saturday, 2nd of March. Again, we've got 1 till 2. Are you aware that that's in the middle of the first Formula 1 race of the year?
Nope.
I wasn't either.
Let's reschedule.
I wasn't either. It's because they've moved it to Saturday, so the races in Bahrain races on Saturday. So I had someone else move this morning. That's the only reason I know about it. So I've got a couple of options. I'm super busy, basically all of the time except that weekend. But in the morning, I've got time. Oh, hang on, no, that's way too early for you because you're.
I'm 4 hours behind you.
Okay, so we could go later. I've got that day. I've got a 6 till 7 p.m. UK, so I could do like 8 till 9 p.m. UK, which is
4 till
or
5.
we can
Yeah, I
do
can
the
do
next
that.
day. Okay, so let me reschedule
Whatever's
that now
best
then.
for you, I could do
No,
the
that-
Saturday afternoon or Sunday.
That's absolutely fine. Let's do later that day. So I'm gonna do it whilst you're on the phone, so that I know it's done. And then you'll get your confirmation. So this is Saturday, 2nd of March, and let's go PM 8 till 9 PM. F1 scheduling will be the reason. There we go, and updated. Cool. Okay, right, that's done. You should have an email about that. Okay, so there's just one more person then that I've got booked in on that day that's during the Grand Prix. And I'm hoping they're going to say that they want to watch it as well, because then I miss it entirely. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Pete. That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brad. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to me. And yeah, we'll do a bit more driving next time. We just
Awesome.
I had to get to know you and your driving in that one. But cool. Right.
I
See you in a
appreciate
week.
your time.
Have a great week.
You too, mate. Take care.
Okay. Bye bye.